Hey, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Nisha Singla and I'm back with another very important interview question on JavaScript, and that is what is callback function. And this question is very important when you are learning JavaScript. So let's talk about what is callback function, how it works, and why it is so powerful and why it is so important. Don't skip the video, watch the complete video till the end to understand it completely. So now let's first understand what is a callback function. So a callback function is a function passed as an argument to another function in order to be called from inside that function. Little confusing. Let me break down this definition. So when a function takes another function as an argument, in that case, the function that you have passed, that function is called a callback function. And if you are working with JavaScript from quite some time, then definitely you have used callback function intentionally or unintentionally. Let me give you few examples where you have already used callback function and you might not aware. The first example is event listener. So whenever you add any event on your DOM element, then you use this add event listener method, right? So suppose we have a button and now I want to attach a click event on this button. So whenever the click will be done, I need to do something. So what action you are going to perform? You write that logic into a function. So in this case, you have passed a function inside another function. So add event listener is already a function and you are passing your handler here. So this function is called a callback function. Another example of callback function is you must have used map function, for each, filter, reduce, right? All these methods. So in these methods also we passed a function as an argument. If in this case, if you understand, we have an array and I just want to multiply every element of this array by 2. So in that case, you will say data.map. So map is a function and I will pass another function to this to handle the logic. So in that case, this function is also a callback function. And another very common method is the interval function. We have set timeout, set interval, right? So in that case also, when we say set timeout, this is already a function and I am passing another function to this. So here this function is called callback function. So I hope you got it clear that you have already used callback in your code. Now one more important term that you should know, a function that accepts the another function is called higher order function. So in that case, add event listener is a higher order function, this map is a higher order function, and this set timeout is also a higher order function. So these are the built-in higher order methods of function in JavaScript. So when a function accept another function as an argument, that function become higher order function, and the function that you have passed to higher order function is called callback function. So now let's move further and let's see how we can create our own callback functions. So let's create one function here, and I have one more function with name of task2. So we know JavaScript executes synchronously. It means if I call this function first, it will execute first. And if I'm executing task 2, so first it will complete the execution of task 1, then it will move to task 2. So you will get the output, some task in progress and task 2 is in progress, and it is expected, right? So this is a very simple method. Now let's convert it to a callback function. As per the definition, when you pass a function to another function, that become a callback function. It means I can pass a function to another function as well. So if I want that task 2 can hold task 1, so I can do something like this. So when you run this one, it will only execute task 2 in progress. The reason being is I have passed task 1 to task 2, but I haven't hold it anywhere. So you need to hold it in a parameter like this. And now task 2 is responsible to execute the logic of your task 1 wherever it wants. That's why I mentioned in the definition that callback function is a function passed as an argument to another function in order to be called from inside their function. So it means this task 2 will decide where exactly this task 1 need to be executed with the help of this parameter. So anywhere you can execute this one. So task 1 will not execute automatically. Task 2 will decide when it should execute. So when you will run this code now, it will execute this statement first, and then it will find callback, which is pointing to this task 1. So in this case, task 1 will be a callback function and task 2 will act like a higher order function. And one point to remember, you cannot call like this, because when you pass parentheses to a function, in that case it executes immediately. So this thing you need to remember, you just need to mention the name. Now there are multiple ways of passing a callback, because it's just a function, right? So you can write your function directly inside this one as well. I mean, this is the first way you can do. You can also do something like this. I can completely copy this function from here and I can pass like this. And this is the same thing. You will get the same output. So when you pass the function like this, it's just like an anonymous function. With EX6 now you can also pass arrow function. So instead of passing anonymous function like this, you can also pass your arrow function here. And output should remain same. So there are 3 ways. You can pass just like a regular function, you can pass a anonymous function, and you can also pass a arrow function. Most of the time we recommend to pass a regular function because it enables the reusability, because we have it as a separate function. So anywhere else if you want to use this function, you can easily use it. But if you pass it like anonymous function or arrow function, then this logic is restricted to this function only. You cannot reuse this logic. So you need to understand how the functionality should be written. Now the another important point is, as this is just a function, right? So how we can pass some argument to a function, because a function can accept the argument, right? So in a similar manner, if your callback needs some argument, how you will pass it? If you say I can pass argument like this, will it work? No. As I told you, you cannot pass parentheses like this because it will make this function execute then and there itself. So this is incorrect. You cannot pass the argument like this. So if you want to pass it like an argument, you have to wrap it in a callback function. So what you can do something like this. So in this case, the task 1 is taking some string as an argument. So you can hold it in a variable here in the parameter, and now you can display it. So you can see it's working fine. So this way you have to pass your argument to a callback function. So now let's move to the another very important point is, callback function can also execute synchronously and asynchronously. Callback function are also of 2 types, synchronous callback and asynchronous callback. And this question is also asked multiple times during interviews, like what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous callback? Mostly the built-in callbacks are synchronous, like map, filter, reduce. These are synchronous callback. Even this task 1 function that we have passed as callback, this is also a synchronous callback. So the main difference between synchronous and asynchronous callback is that synchronous callback are executed immediately. On the other hand, the execution of asynchronous callback is deferred to a later point of time. Let me write something here. Suppose I say this is statement 1 and here I said statement 2, and maybe at the end I said statement 3, maybe after this function call. So when you run this one, try to understand the execution. The code will start from here. This is printing statement 1, right? After this, it's just a function, and then it will found another console, so statement 2. After this is just a function, and it will come here, that is a function call, right? So in that case, it will go to task 2 and it executing task 2 is in progress, and then it will found one callback, so it will execute the callback function first, and then it is coming to the last statement, that is statement 3. So you can understand the callback function is executing in a synchronous manner. So in this case, this is the synchronous callback. Now let's talk about where asynchronous callback can be seen or can be used. So asynchronous functions are usually the one that do some network request, where you need to hold some time to get the result. Because if we are hitting some backend, we don't know how much time it is going to take for the processing, right? Or if you are doing some input output operation, or you are interacting with file system or send a query to a database. So all these things are asynchronous. So to implement asynchronous callback, we basically use this interval function, set timeout function. Because when you use set timeout, In that case, we introduce some delay because of the timer. So now let's implement one asynchronous callback and let's see how it works. So suppose we have a function like apply for job, where maybe we are just applying for a job and it will go through certain steps, right? So maybe initial step is like your resume has uploaded, and after that the second step may be that your request is in progress, right? And here maybe I have one more function that is basically to send notification or send response, something like this. So now I just want to send some notification back to the user. So what exactly I want to do here, I want to say something like your profile is shortlisted for the interview. So in this case, I will call this function, right? And I want to pass this function as a callback function. So I can do this one, nothing new here, right? We have understood this logic so far. So this argument, we have to hold it here somewhere, right? So maybe I will pass it as a callback. Now I will call it somewhere inside this function, right? So when you will run this function, what output you will expect? It is a synchronous callback or a asynchronous callback? I don't see any asynchronous behavior here, right? It will just a function call. It will execute every statement line by line. When it will find this callback function, it will execute this callback function. And at the end, here maybe I have something, some other stuff in progress, maybe, okay? So if you execute this code, you will get some output. Your resume is uploaded, your result is in progress, then just a callback. So it will execute this one and at the end this one. So this is the example of synchronous callback. Now try to understand that when my resume is uploaded, it will go for some checking in the background. It will check certain requirement. It might take some time. So then and there, its result is not available. So I want to hold this execution for some time. Maybe I am checking something in the database, is it the correct profile, or under which team this requirement is needed, right? So there are so many things I want to check in the background. So in that case, this callback function cannot execute then and there. It will execute sometime later in the execution. So in that case, I will introduce a async callback. So to implement the async callback, what you can do, we can use set timeout. So let's remove this one and I will say here set timeout, and I will pass a function here. So after 5000 millisecond, I want to get the response for my server, which will return me this callback. So what output you will get now? Let's run this one. You can notice here it waited for some time, and after 5000 millisecond you will get the response. So now this execution is not synchronous. It first executed this line, your request is in progress, then it found some asynchronous callback. So my main thread will not wait for this one, it will come for the next statement. So it come out from my higher order method, higher order function, and it come and execute the other statement. Some other stuff is in progress, and sometime later it will, when this time will be completed, then it will execute my callback function and return whatever it is inside this callback. So this is called asynchronous callback, and in all API call you see this behavior. It's quite common. So it's very important to understand how async callbacks are work. So this is all about callback, like what is callback, how it works, what are the different ways of passing it, and what is synchronous callback, what is asynchronous callback. And this is all for today. I hope you found this session useful. If yes, then don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe my channel. I will see you in the next video with more interesting topic. Till then, keep learning.